Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Antonino Minneci, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of my presentation. We've already heard many interesting and thrilling presentations about the industry, and I was also impressed by the success story of Mr. Dolmans. But after this multi-sensory kind of stimulation, I feel like going on a wellness trip myself. But of course, my objective here today is to introduce to you the Wellness Trends 2013. What are the demands of the customers? What do they expect from the industry? But we'll also deal with the question of developments within the wellness industry. And there is one thing that I can already anticipate. I can tell you already that the whole industry is seeing a very positive development, and there is a real upswing. Now, follow us on this journey, looking at the different questions and answers over the next 20 to 25 minutes. In a first step, I would like to, first of all, look back at the development of the wellness travel market, the overall development of the industry, its importance for the overall tourism industry, and what wellness actually stands for. The second item would be to ask about who those wellness travelers are, who feels like they need a wellness trip, and could we possibly identify some target groups that are now responsible for this upswing of the industry. Another important item that we'll be looking into are the expectations of the customers. What are their demands? What do they expect? And what kind of approaches can be devolved from this in order to actually positively influence the level of satisfaction of the customers? And before I will then move on to a conclusion and a summary, I would like to come to talk about the customer journey and the importance of the internet. But before we start in medias res, I would like to give you an overview of the instruments that we use for our analyses. The basis is the GfK Travel Scope, which is probing some 20,000 private households in Germany, or 45,000 persons as an equivalent, that we choose on a representative basis, and that represents some 74 million Germans all through all different age brackets. And we try to collect the traveling behavior data on a monthly basis. And this was the overview as far as instruments are concerned. Let's move on to the first item on the agenda, the development of the overall travel markets. And in the beginning, I would like to give you some key figures on holiday travels for the year 2012. Let's start with this chart on the left-hand side. The starting point is the totality of 74 million Germans, and 2012, some 51 million people actually went on holiday, 3.9 of which spent at least one of their holiday trips in a wellness resort, which means that some 8% of the journey travelers spent time doing wellness. These 3.9 million trips stand for 5 million passengers or travelers, and if you compare this to the overall figure of 132 million trips, it means that the wellness industry has an overall share of 3.6% of the travel and tourism market. This is the status quo of 2012. Let's now move on and look at the development of the industry. What we can see very nicely is that there is a positive growth trend over the years, and there was a rather strong growth with approximately 5 million wellness trips and travels in 2012. If you compare this with the overall tourism and traveling market, there was a plus of 7% in that market, actually. But it becomes apparent that we have an above-average growth in the field of wellness, and it becomes even more apparent when looking at the market share of wellness trips as compared to the overall amount of travels and trips. It shows that we had an increase from 2.9 to 3.6% in 2012, which means that we have had a growth of plus 24%. This again goes to show that growth was really above average as compared to the regular traveling market. So it still is a strong trend, and it is still on the up. On top of that, in our current study that we carried out in cooperation with the WAD and Beauty24, we looked at the development for 2013 of the forecast, and some 30% of travelers have show an interest in traveling for the purpose of wellness. So that means that we still have a potential of 14 million people as of the age of 14. If you compare this high value to the overall figure of wellness trips in 2012, we can see that the potential is 3 times as high as the overall number of wellness trips carried out in 2012. And this, I think, again goes to show that there is a strong potential for growth in this industry. After looking at this overall development, let's move a step further and look at the importance of Germany for the overall wellness industry. What we tried to depict here, or the first hypothesis, is that Germany is probably the most important country for German wellness travelers. 71% of all wellness trips from the source market in Germany have taken place within the boundaries of Germany, which is a top value. And I think it also goes to show that Germany has a very positive development here in terms of growth, 20% in wellness offers. And then in looking at the neighboring countries, we can see that they also are growing in terms of the wellness offers, and especially France, Austria, and Italy are seeing a disproportionate growth. But still, Germany is and remains the most important destination for German wellness travelers. Let's move on. Ask herself the question, what does wellness actually stand for? Now, if we want to quote the Stress Report 2012 that was commissioned by the Federal Agency for Work Protection and Labor Protection, then it becomes apparent that almost half of the Germans are complaining about growing stress at their workplace, and every fourth person even does away with their working breaks. And we asked now our consumers what they think wellness is, and some 87% of those who answered said that on the occasion of the wellness holiday, they want to actually recuperate some strength, and they want to balance out the stress that they normally live in. People want to use wellness in order to just pull the plug and in order to at the same time recharge their batteries and do something for their state of health. But then the health care aspect plays a very important role. It individually asked for this aspect, it's ranking second with 77%. And I think that preventive motives are also very important. People try to prevent, for example, burnout. Some 54% answered that. And there is a development, away from the beauty farm traditional wellness holiday, and they try to rather embrace a holistic approach, a holistic lifestyle. They want to use wellness in order to really come to terms and find some kind of harmony within themselves and between their life and their work, for example. So in the first part, we looked at the developments of the overall travel and tourism markets. I tried to show you what the wellness actually stands for in our study, and let's now move on and ask the question of who those travelers are. Who is actually eligible, or who would want to go on a wellness trip, and can we already identify potential target groups? If we try to look at this in a differentiated fashion and then look at structural characteristics, like, for example, the age group, the size of the household, and also the occupation, there are two very relevant and interesting target groups that we can already identify. Ladies and gentlemen, we can see that the share of 30 to 49-year-olds in wellness travels compared to the overall tourism market is, again, above average. And we also have an above average rate of working people and who live in a household of at least 4 people or more. And then our analyses also show quite nicely that there is a growth for the age group between 30 and 49 and in families, and these are really a driver for this positive development of the market. And so we try to focus on these two identified target groups. Let's first of all look at the target group of the people between 30 and 49 years of age who are somewhere in the rush hour of life. If we want to define that term, then we could say that it's characterized by the fact that you have to deal with several issues at the same time. You have to find a partner, you have to marry, perhaps found a family, have children, but at the same time, you have your professional career, you want to advance, and all of these things have to be struggled and coped with at the same time. And, the answer to this rush hour of life sometimes is just wellness, and that is why we have to look at the importance of wellness as a concept for this target group. Let us first of all give you an overview of this target group, not only just some structural characteristics, but also characteristics that concern their travel behavior. So some 59% of this group are women, and it becomes apparent that we are talking about working women who also have a university degree, who are right in the middle of their working life. But what is also very important is that we have a high-income clientele that we're talking about, more than 3,000 euros per month. And I think this also is a very important potential for the industry that needs to be tapped into, this high household income. Then we've got a high level of two-people households. These are the double income, no kids groups that we see as a target group. And these are also characterized by a great level of affinity for internet activities. More than half of the people belonging to this target group use the internet regularly as a channel for research, for booking. And this, of course, is very important for communication strategies and marketing. So this, I think, is enough in terms of the socio-demographic characteristics. Let's take a look at the traveling behavior. It's especially the short trips that are relevant for this target group, 1 to 3 nights. So just pull the plug for a short amount of time, like rebooting the whole system and regenerate spontaneously if need be. If you feel like you need to give yourself a treat for your body, for your soul, then you may just go for the short weekend wellness trip. Another important factor is the choice of hotels. 3 to 4 star hotels are the preferred kind of accommodation, and with a view to the booking, we can see that the people that belong to this group book in advance, up to 2 months, for example, so they are rather more flexible, of course, in their booking behavior as compared to groups where they have children, and you have to, of course, plan and book your trip much more in advance and more in detail. So internet is important for this target group. On top of that, we can see that the internet is not only important as a source of information, but also as a medium for booking activities. So the internet, very important for this target group. That much in terms of the characteristics, but if we ask ourselves the question what the motives are of this rush hour, stressed out part of the population, what do they think wellness is? Well, we asked them, and these are the top 3 ranking motives, their motivation. They actually say that they feel that the relaxation is really valuable, and it is actually a palpable experience. And more than 90% of this age group says that this is the most important aspect for wellness travels. And if you compare this to other target groups, you can see that this is a well above average value. The second motivation would be the prevention of burnout by using wellness offers. So they try to avoid burnout symptoms, and some 60% agree with that. And so that means that the health subject is an overall very important topic, but of course also quality time with your partner plays an important role as the third most important motivation. They just want to spend time together with their partners, just relax, unwind, and just have a good time. After having looked at the first target group, I would now like to move on to the next. As I already said, in the group between 30 and 49, the subject of family becomes more and more important, but the families themselves are also offer a major potential for growth for the industry. It becomes apparent when looking at the readiness to spend money on holidays. In our current study, we asked about this readiness, whether people are actually ready and willing to spend more money in 2013 on wellness holidays than they did in 2012. And we can see that there is an increase with a view to the families. More than 1/3 of the families are ready and willing to spend more on wellness holidays in 2013 as compared to 2012. And if we look at the development, then we can see that last year it was only 27% of all families, which means that the overall willingness increased by 22%. And this, I think, again, goes to show how important this target group is in terms of its potential for the growth. And let me give you the characteristics of this group that we're currently talking about. To families that went on wellness trips. Some 50% of these families have a high household income, 3,000 euros and more, and we've got 26% of which have a university degree, for example, university education. 71% live in households with 4 persons or more. 39% of these people of the group are very or use the internet frequently. It's not quite as high, this value, as compared to the previous group, but still very high. With a view to travel characteristics and traveling behavior, families are willing to go on longer journeys. They have children, and they spend a couple of days more when going on a holiday as compared to the group of the 30 to 49 years old. We can see that there is something that these groups have in common. The 3 to 4 star hotels with accommodation and food are the preferred options, but in the booking time frame, as I already indicated a moment ago, is of course much longer. They have to plan in advance, so it's a 4 month before actually the start of the journey that they have to start planning and booking. The last 2 items here on this list, I think, again, go to show that the internet is very important for families too, both as a source of information but also as a medium for booking. This target group is very much active and alive on these online channels. Let's move a step further and ask ourselves what kind of expectations families have. If you hear the combination families and wellness holidays, is this compatible? Then yes, it is. That would be the answer. And they have very, very specific demands and wishes. And let's take a look at those. It's becoming more and more important that families look for designated kids areas, but they also wish to have child-free times, so to speak, during the holidays. That means that the wellness holiday for families actually starts whenever the parents know that their children are doing fine, that they're being looked after, that other wellness guests do not feel pestered or molested by the children while they are playing in the pool or something. And then when there is actually childcare available, then you can also relax with your partner, your wife, or your husband. So families do have very concrete ideas about what they expect from the holidays, and this is a very important subject to take into account. We've talked a lot about market developments. We've seen that there is a real upswing going on in the industry. We've looked at the main target groups. Let's go a step further and ask ourselves what the guests actually expect. What are the requirements and what kind of approaches can be developed on this basis? This is what we looked at in our study and collected statements. But first of all, let me take a step back and talk about something else. Of course, customer satisfaction is a very important factor with a view to customer retention and loyalties. If a customer is satisfied, they'll come back. But satisfaction and loyalty, of course, are only one aspect. With a view to the winning over of new customers, it is very important that the word of mouth propaganda, so to speak, is also something that takes place. And there is a very positive insight here. We've got the 3 aspects. We've got the customer satisfaction, then the readiness to recommend, and the intention to come back. And you can see that satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and also the readiness to recommend and to come back is higher than the average, which is a positive thing, of course. But still, let's look at the question of what our guests expect. Are there approaches that would help us to even improve the already above average satisfaction of the clients and customers? Well, let's take a look. What we can see here are some statements of customer expectations, and the most important one is flexibility. 5 of 6 guests would wish to be able to book the amenities that are on offer on site, and that they can book these on short notice. Then a rather large range of different wellness applications or treatments are very important, and of course they want to have a rather broad range of offers. But we've heard from different presentations, and you already talked about that in your presentation. It is very important to also create a specific and characteristic profile that perhaps also offer a boiled-down kind of spa menu that sets yourself apart from your competitors and that helps you to actually assert your position in the market. But still, the overall range of choices is very important. Ranking third, we've got the wellness facilities that should have dedicated child zones or kids zones and kid-free zones. And we've heard, just talked about exactly that when talking about the families. But then, of course, there is the demand of being able to go and visit trainings or seminars or work groups, workshops with experts, like, for example, the reduction of stress levels in your everyday life, or, dietary workshops, for example. And, in your everyday life, you tend to forget to, for example, use a healthy diet, and perhaps with the right kind of training and with the necessary and valuable tips from experts, you can, in spite of a high workload, still achieve to have a well-balanced diet with carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, and so on and so forth in order to remain healthy. So you can see that this is, again, a very important subject for the customers, and I think with through the cooperation with experts, the industry could actually fulfill these customer needs. And last item that I would like to mention is the use of smartphones and tablet PCs. At this point in time, you may have to smile. I was rather surprised myself when I read this statement. I thought, well, in the spa area, people want to use tablet PCs and smartphones. Is this really an issue? But quite apparently, there are only people who can relax when they know that their own football team won 5-0 or 5-1 and can then go back to relaxing. So you can see in sum that there are many different points of leverage that would help you to increase the level of satisfaction of your customers. And with that, of course, you can also positively influence customer loyalty. Before I now come to the conclusion, I would like to first of all talk about the customer journey, that is the journey before the journey, and the importance of the internet. At the different points today, we heard about the importance of the internet as a medium, not just as a source of information, but also with a view to the fact that people use it as a medium for booking their journeys and travels. Now, today, we no longer have the traditional pathway that would allow us to, gather information. Now, today we've got a plethora of different options from where to source our information. If we look at this chart, it, becomes apparent that the journey could already begin with the decision of actually booking a wellness trip. Then you, go on Google, for example, and then you type in wellness trip, and then you get the search results. And then as a next step, you can go onto the hotel booking page. You've got the social media, you've got the review pages. I don't need to go through all the motions. You know how complex this flow of information today is. But this is the very fact that we have to bear in mind, this kind of complexity. And we've got different possibilities to analyze and to measure this complexity electronically. But what I want to point out is that we need to have to understand what our customers, how they work, how they think, and where I have to actually position my brand, my message in order to get through to my target group. Finally, the subject of the internet as an information source. This is the top 10 of information sources, both for the wellness trips as compared to the overall tourism market. And it becomes apparent that the internet is and remains the most important source of information, both for the complete traveling market and wellness travels and trips. In more than 30% of all journeys and travels booked, the internet is being used. And this, of course, is all the more pronounced in the target groups that we talked about, and underlines how important this medium is. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the conclusion. Let me just repeat the most important items for you. The takeaway messages for you, if you will. First of all, I would like to underline that there is a real upswing. There is an above-average market growth in the industry. It grew by 24% from the 2.9 to 3.6%. If you compare this to the overall growth of 7% of the overall traveling market, you can see that there is an ongoing and strong above-average growth. And we've seen that people wish to remain healthy, and that this is a positively influencing factor for this growth. People want to recuperate from their stressful everyday life. They want to do something for their health and prevent burnout. These are also positively impacting factors. Then I talked about two important target groups, the 30 to 49-year-olds who are in the very rush hour of life, and the families were the second group. And I try to point out to you what the most important factors are when you deal with these target groups and what their expectations are. And we found out that wellness guests have very concrete expectations. 5 of 6 guests, for example, wish to be able to book treatments on a short notice, but also the broad range of different treatments, spa treatments, are expectations that need to be taken into account. Then, how to address your target groups. The internet plays a vital role. The target groups are very much alive and around on the internet, and you can use it, of course, in order to get into contact with them. You can have your special internet appearance on your homepage, where you, for example, introduce the outlines of your spa menu. You can even set yourself apart through the design of your homepage. We've seen successful designs as to how to do it today. So this is important for addressing your target audience, but I want to underline again that the wellness industry is seeing positive growth and that there is still a lot of potential to be tapped into for the industry. In this respect, I would like to thank you now for your attention, and I'm available for questions.